Something like that.
That's nice. I like that. Hey, everybody. I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
We want to welcome you to a Thomas Table Talk at the Lionheart Institute podcast this week. Man, do we have a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to say.
The world is popping off. It is hard to believe that we are going to talk about a topic, 2020, probably one of the biggest events that's happened in world history, or at least American history, of the modern era, if nothing else. We've had COVID happen, which is a worldwide pandemic. Mm-hmm. And for America, particularly the black community, this single event, the tragic murder, we can call it a murder now.
Yep, we can call it
not just a death. Mm-hmm. We can call it the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
Is becoming already a pivotal point in American history. This is something that will be written about in history books.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping has an extreme impact on the world that we live in. Yeah. Okay. And I'd like to talk about that if we could. I so appreciate your insight on it. I want to use two characters that are important to me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Number one is Candace Owens. Right? Mm-hmm. So much to say about Candace because she really unknowingly was a torch to light the fire of fury amongst the black community. Yep. Right? Obviously, they were well on their way already. However, her thoughts on the George Floyd matter lifted the voice of the black community, enraged liberals and Democrats. Even yourself, outraged to a point of saying, "Hey, we have to become a different world." Yeah. And then a voice that has not been heard in a long time, but a voice that's important to me and many of our audience will know, which is Brett Farve. Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, I'd like to talk about Derek
Chauvin.
Yeah, Derek Chauvin and the impact that it has. Really, we're revealing the hypocrisy with George Floyd's death, right? And
how that's, the hypocrisy that just rang through the heavens, really, since his death.
And how America has really wrestled with it.
How they've responded to it.
How you have the right responding to it, the left responding to it. Yeah. How it's incited, really, the BLM movement. Yeah. I mean, I know that it was active. I know that there were... It had a voice. I know
but it pushed it way to the front.
Yeah. And so appreciative, not only not of the movement. I really still, as long as it's been around, don't know that much about the movement.
Yeah, we don't think about them. Yes.
That matters to me.
It's the statement.
And I know there's a lot of people who really say, "Hey, BLM is a Marxist movement. Yeah. How can you be a Christian and support BLM when they've done this?" Well, to me, it's pretty simple. If my child was out drowning in a swimming pool, I wouldn't care if it was a gorilla that sent her a life jacket, or whether it was an angel. Right? Whether it was a devil or whether it was a demon or whether it was an angel or whether it was, the most God himself. Right? I'm going to be appreciative and thankful for who's rescuing my child. Yeah. Right? And so for white community who really is outraged that, and I don't know that much, I say it again, about the movement, right? That so many black people would pay attention to BLM, would support BLM. For Christians that are tossed betwixt and between, who would say, "I can't believe that so many people are rushing towards liberalism at this point," right? Running away from traditional Christian values, right? That they don't understand it. Listen to me. Our children were drowning in a pool, and you watched them drown while someone came and rescued them. Yeah. Right, and someone came and raised a voice for them, and someone jumped in the pool and tried to save them. Now, I know that there's a ton of things that are wrong with the movement, a ton of things where some people are getting rich. That's true of every organization. Okay, these beloved people who think that Donald Trump, who was their savior, didn't take $200 million and put it in his own bank account, right? They're out of their mind. So now they want to judge the BLM movement because the girl bought a house where he bought a country, right? I mean, let's get real. I mean, the hypocrisy is out of control. So flow with me a little bit about Candace Owens. Bring us back to the early time of 2020.
Oh, my goodness.
When the story breaks, obviously there's the first voice to the scene is a Trump. Defamation, which is so very common amongst black community, Hispanic community, minority community, where we're vilified before we can even be spoken about.
Yeah.
Right? Unfold that a little bit.
You know, the truth is, Candace Owens started a career in support of Trump and basically being a paid mouthpiece for conservatives to continue to further Trump's agenda, their narratives. And, you know, she was a woman of color. So they saw it as a great opportunity
to weaponize her voice.
To weaponize her voice. And because all that she has done is convinced white people that what they believe about black communities are true.
So powerful.
That is literally all she's done. Now, I dislike this woman so greatly. I feel that she has done so much harm to the black community, and literally listening to people, majority white people, support of her is nauseating to me. And about how well spoken she is, how intelligent she is, how, you know, she all her facts, all the truth that she brings to her platform. The latest is, I hope she runs for president. We'd all vote for her. I heard a woman say the other day, which I commented on because I couldn't take it, was how lucky the black community is to have her to speak for them.
Sure.
And this is where it's difficult for me because I know that I am not a person of color. So I have to be careful and mindful of what I say. I am not representing people of color. You know, I have no way to do that. And, you know, so I have to be mindful of what I say.
You're fighting for justice. You're fighting for your own children.
Yes. But what I can say is my experience with people of color and their opinion of Candace Owens is that she does not speak for them. And so I responded to this woman and I said, you know, before you start thanking this woman for being this voice to black people and people of color, maybe you ought to actually talk to people of color and see what they think of her. I said, you might be surprised to find most of them don't like her and will say she does not speak for us. And of course, many white people disagreed with me that was a lie, that, you know, because they see her on this pedestal and it's just nauseating. But she has built her career on harmful propaganda.
Mostly defamation against George Floyd.
My gosh.
I know she was around. I know she had a bit of a voice, but
yeah,
it really took off with her absolutely destroying this man.
Oh my gosh, just awful.
In a morning rampage about how unworthy of his attention he really was. She
was talking about how we have made him a saint, how we have glorified him, and he is basically was a worthless human being and didn't deserve to be glorified. I mean, she just would go on and on about his past, his record, what she felt about him and his representation, to the point of essentially justifying his death because in her mind, he was a terrible person. And she's been a huge proponent of making sure people know what kind of person George Floyd was. Now, as we have stated, George Floyd was never on trial.
That's right.
He was the victim. Okay, Derek Chauvin was on trial. And she was recently, I don't know why people seem to want her opinion on everything, but she has spoken out multiple times about the conviction of Derek Chauvin. And she has gone on to say how the trial was completely unfair.
Right.
How there was no evidence pretty much whatsoever that this was a mob rule situation where the Democrats, the liberals, basically threatened and bullied their way to get the conviction that they wanted. And this was all political. Mm-hmm. That George Floyd died of a drug overdose. And those are the facts. And that she just can't believe people are thinking anything other than that.
Even though all evidence was entirely contrary to it.
Yeah.
She has no wiggle room in her mind because she was so bold in her declaration that all truth would come out in the trial.
Yeah.
That Derek would be found innocent.
Yeah.
Right? That it was a tragic event that happened. It was a heartbreaking event that happened. She shed no tears, of course, as she's saying that.
Right.
But that it was a justified death. Right.
And, well, because she went on as to say too that so much information about George Floyd was hidden, was not allowed in the case as evidence, you know. But again, George Floyd was not the one on trial. Okay. Now she even went as far as to, apparently she has the right to have this opinion, and somehow she is knowledgeable on this, but she went as far as to say that a person who has 9 stints in prison, there is no way at all that he was bettering his life right now. That there is zero possibility that that is a true statement. Because apparently she's an expert on it, and she personally knew George Floyd and where he was in his life.
Sure.
And but it was just disgusting.
What she is she's an opportunist.
Oh, 100%.
Okay? And what it's shown in the world is the hypocrisy of so many people who would tear down others in order to build their own career, right? Yeah. For her, for instance, her whole platform is that white supremacy has no value. No, we shouldn't look at white supremacy in the society that we look in. That all fault falls on the black male, right? Essentially, that we have to look at black on black crime, right? That we have to look at the poverty rate in the inner city, right? And all of that is absolutely true. My issue with that talking point is not that Candace is wrong in that for black people to rise up, they have to take accountability for ourselves.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
For us to rise up, we have to take responsibility for the education of our children. We have to take responsibility for the conduct of our children.
Yeah.
We have to take responsibility for our own pursuit of well-being, right? We have to take responsibility for the violence that happens in our own community. That is not my talking point that I have an issue with. The issue that I have a talking point about is that she's not talking to the black community about addressing black issues.
Right.
She's talking to white communities talking about black issues.
Yes.
And she's talking to black people about do not blame white supremacy. Now, the two are not multiply exclusive, right? The truth is I can reach and fulfill all my dreams and I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to. There is not a black child that I have ever met that doesn't have that spark of creativity or capacity within them. I have seen the twinkle in many a child's eye, and the twinkle is no different in an Asian child's eye than it is in a white child's eye.
Yep.
The twinkle is no different in and I said Asian, but a Cambodian's eye than there is in an Indian's eye.
Yeah.
Right? The twinkle in their eyes of possibility and potential and hope and a future. That beautiful verse that there is a future and a hope that God desires for us all.
Yeah.
I believe that, okay? But the truth is that there is also an enemy.
Yeah.
And that enemy in African Americans' world, in people of color's world, is the number one threat based on Homeland Security, based on the FBI, based on research that's done not by a black organization, but by the U.S. government, who has declared that the number one threat against America is white supremacist organizations. Listen to me. And that is my dialogue and why I am disgusted with the approach of Candace Owens.
Yeah.
It's not so much that she gets up and says that we need to address this issue and that issue and this issue and that issue. I'm okay with that. The truth is we do. But for us to address them, we also have to address the systemic process by which they were implemented upon our community. Because if you don't take away the stranglehold, you'll still have a system of people running around murdering our children. And I don't care if that child is 50 years old, 60 years old, 40 years old. I don't care if that child has been in prison 9 times or 3 times or 1 time. Most of those charges are based on marijuana anyway, which you just gave Mary Poppins down the road the Business of the Year award because she had a marijuana business last year.
Yep.
So what we have to do now is we have to look at them not independent, but we have to. I'm sorry, I got you on this one. I know it's usually Tiffany going.
I know I'm usually the one going. It's all good, baby.
But what I'm looking at and I'm talking to you about is you have to understand something. They're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
The two are kissing cousins.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to be whole, yes, we need to deal with some internal shit. But we have to look at the fact that we have been given a track to run on.
Yeah.
And there have been stumbling blocks that are set in front of me. Set them in front of me. I don't give a damn. I will beat you in the race if I'm allowed to run.
Yeah. 100%.
But see, for most of us, there's a 70% chance that you're going to interrupt my run with a prison stint.
Yeah.
Now, not all of that prison time is legitimate time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not all of that poor education that I received at a lesser school because it's in a lesser tax bracket because of, let's be honest, redlining.
Yep.
Gives me the opportunity to go to Howard, right?
Yeah.
Or to go to Yale, or to go to Stanford. Right. So often of ours, it's all about the choice or the path that we decide to pursue. And so for so many of us that are in communities of color, we are blessed and fortunate if we pursue the entertainment industry, because at least that way we have a fair running track.
Right.
Right? So much to say about that.
Yes, as you can see, we feel very passionate about Candace Owens' stances, and the truth is, we're just sick and tired of her lies and misinformation that she spreads, and her false narratives that she tries to convert. She's just a puppet. Like, people, she is just a paid mouthpiece to continue to enforce these lies and these narratives. I mean, she is a walking contradiction and a hypocrite. And if you just listen to her and you compare her different tweets, her different posts, her different videos and statements to each other, you will find so much contradiction and hypocrisy. It's nauseating. Like, I'm going to give you an example. So she recently posted a tweet in regards to LeBron James. So he, yes, the king. So he recently tweeted a picture of the cop that just killed the 16-year-old girl and said, "You're next," right? So
probably inappropriate.
It sparked a lot of controversy with a lot of people.
Sure.
Now, Candace Owens' response to this
I don't think it was inappropriate, but I'm saying probably in the minds of many.
A lot of people, especially white Americans, found this inappropriate. And conservatives, let me just say conservatives found this greatly inappropriate. So her tweet was, "If America was a country that believed in justice, LeBron James would be stripped of all his sponsorships." Now...
And yet, hold on. And yet she's Mrs. Don't let what is it?
Cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
Oh, she is big on fighting the cancel culture, but here she's calling for LeBron. She wants him canceled, right? Contradiction, hypocrites. So I want to read you a couple responses to her tweet from just random people, because it was priceless. And again, these are people pointing out her hypocrisies. One gentleman tweeted in response to that. He says, "You support a guy who took out ads in local New York newspapers calling for the execution of falsely accused Central Park Five and refused to ever apologize. But go on." This was a man she supported and put on a pedestal for years. Another person says, "One line of his sneakers is worth more than you will ever make selling your soul to be a Twitter puppet for Fox. Sounds like Nike probably going to keep the guy." Now this one was a good one too. Her response was, "You must think LeBron James is sponsored by Mr. Pillow and Hobby Lobby. Girl, please. Never missing an opportunity to hate on black people while carrying water for racists. Self-hate is real." See, these are people who see her lies, who see her hypocrisy, and are holding her accountable for those lies and hypocrisy. Because all she is doing is continuing to drive the wedge of division and hate in this country by pointing out all the negativity within the black community that she feels needs to be held accountable for. All she continues to perpetuate is the narratives that this country built to make us believe were true.
No one wants to point out, she doesn't want to point out the fact that he's also built a school. That he nearly, I believe, at least at one point, I don't know if he's probably got it going now and has it strong, but that he 100% funded.
Right.
Okay?
Nothing from her comes from any of the positive things that LeBron James has ever done. She never focuses on anything good. She only ever focuses on the bad of people.
The negative thing that I have, and this is where my frustration comes from, is not just LeBron.
Right.
It's anything from the black community itself.
Yes.
Anything that represents a protection of self, a devotion to protecting our neighbors, a devotion to elevating our neighbors, right? And listen, I'm not I'm not Pan-African, okay? There's nothing about me that's separatist, okay? And I understand it, I respect it, because there's a lot of truth to the fact that if we could go back to an era and a day where we go back to Black Wall Street, we've done extremely well by ourselves.
Yes, we
have. She said, yes, we have. I ain't mad at you. Come on, girl. I'll take it with.
I know. See, I know I'm not a person of color. I'm sorry.
But the truth is that there is a functionality of that. We had somebody post that it would all be better if we could have two Americas, a Black America and a white America.
Split America down.
I don't believe in that.
Nope.
Okay. However, for us to pretend that all the issues that Black Americans face is their own is a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a self-hate that will keep us perpetually trapped in a system designed to destroy us, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful that you shared her tweets, right?
Yeah.
Because it's somebody else cussing her out, not me.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, most recently, one that stands out to me is Brett Farve.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Again, it's regarding LeBron and his frustration, right, with the policing system, raising his voice, really trying to make sure that the topic doesn't die.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, we've had Rodney King in the past, right? We've had moments where we felt like, okay, maybe we're getting over the top of the mountain and we'll start addressing these things in a way that's equitable, in a way that brings justice. But the truth is, most of the time, it's just been a temporary appeasement to where we go back into a place of complacency.
Yep.
It's time that America, we cannot go back into a place of complacency.
No, that time is gone.
We can't allow voices that inspire us, that motivate us, that encourage us, that docile us, okay, to rise up to do that. And a guy that I respected a tremendous amount. I can't say that my respect for him is entirely gone. Right. But it's Brett Favre. I would have loved to play with this guy.
Yeah,
okay?
I know you would have.
I watch his joyful approach to the game of football, jumping up like he's a kid.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Iron Man himself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, played more football games in a row than any football player. As a matter of fact, played with a broken finger, broken hand, or whatever.
Right.
His last couple games, and then finally just decided, you know what, it's time I don't start.
Yeah.
And so he did it on his terms. So I have a great deal of respect for him in the stance of football.
Right.
Okay. In honesty, if I were to say that I haven't been around him enough to really know, but he's not a guy that I would take as racist, right?
No, not at all.
Now I can't say I'm not at all, because there's a lot of hats out there. But
yeah, that's true.
For people that I've talked to, he isn't, right? From people that I know that have played with him, have been around him, he seems like he's a phenomenal leader.
Yeah.
Cares about people.
Right.
Would, take his shirt off his back, that whole saying, right, for people. However, there is a trap in the mind of this generation and generations before us that we need to snap, right? And it is acceptance of a world of non-accountability for the treatment of black people.
Yes,
okay?
100%.
You cannot complete the majority of your passes to black players and not be sympathetic to their plight. Okay,
100%.
You can't say that you have black friends and not be moved with compassion by the things that make them cry.
Yes.
Okay? It's the same issue that I had with Dingleberry out of the Saints. Drew Brees. Okay, you cannot stand up in front of your team.
Yes.
Feel like you're gonna, and they would have won the Super Bowl last year. I really believe that the consequence of what he did cost them the Super Bowl, because it cost them unity.
Yes.
Right.
It put a wedge between.
Which I hope that's all the price, because I've heard Drew Brees is a phenomenal human being. Right. What I've seen him do for the city of St. Louis. I had a dear friend of mine that played with him. Several of them actually that have played with him, and they just rave about the guy, and the things that I've seen with my own eyes says he's a remarkable human being.
Yeah.
But where America has come to is a place where there cannot be any more hypocrisy.
Yes.
Okay? We cannot say we have black friends and not be sympathetic to the
Right.
pain and the suffering that they're going through and ignore it and say, as though you don't have a black friend in that case. You have a black associate.
Yes.
Okay? And I have all these people that jump on Facebook and say, that's not the black friend I knew in elementary school, or that's not the black friend that I knew in junior high school,
right.
or that's not the black friend I knew in college.
Yeah.
When we begin to raise our voice and we begin to say, hey, listen, the things that have happened in our society are not acceptable,
right.
and we need to see them change.
Yeah.
Okay? He had the audacity, Brett Farve, to get up and say that Americans are tired of seeing athletes talk about politics on sporting event channels. Now, he said that on a sporting event channel.
Right.
So the hypocrisy of it is this, and this is where people don't understand this. Who in the fuck are you to say I can talk about it
Right.
on a sporting channel from my white perspective,
Yeah.
but you don't have the right to talk about it when it's your black children that are at risk,
Yeah.
when it's your black community that's at risk, when it's your brothers and sisters at risk.
Yeah.
LeBron James, now listen, I don't pretend to know all of the fullness of what he has at stake or what he's
Right.
risking.
Right.
Okay, but we're not talking about $5 he's rubbing together on the side of a corner
Yeah.
trying to make it. Okay,
Yeah.
he has throughout his career put hundreds of millions of dollars at risk
Yeah.
by stating what he believes for our community. Okay, so like it or not, you cannot silence this man. You can't tell this man shut up and dribble.
Right.
Okay,
People are trying right now. People are trying to ban him from. People want him kicked out of the NBA.
now they want to talk about they don't believe in the cancel culture, right?
And-
They're taking away Christianity. They're canceling Christianity.
I
They're
know.
canceling our ability to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
This whole cancel culture. Republicans talk about it like it's a disease.
Yeah.
And yet they want to say that they're going to protest the NBA because of LeBron James until he's silenced.
Yeah.
That sounds like cancel culture to me.
Right.
I'm tired of the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the audacity of people who have lived in privilege, not all of them with a silver spoon in their mouth.
Right. Right.
Many of them who have struggled and fought and toiled. But when they get pulled over at night, they know they're going home.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they're struggling in school, they know that they can go into the teacher and talk to them and have an opportunity.
Yeah.
They know that when their blood pressure begins to rise and they begin to call the doctor into the room, that the doctor is going to stay in the room until they do all the tests on the baby, and they're not going to rush to have a C-section, which could lead to premature death.
100%.
These are all institutions of accountability that have been influenced by racism, systemic racism, that has affected our country, our nation, our community at the whole.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so Brett Favre gets on there and says, listen, I don't want to defend Derek
Chauvin. Yeah, he says, I'm not defending him.
However, I don't believe he intended to kill that man.
Yeah, I don't think he meant to kill him, was what
Now,
he said.
I've already said an extreme cuss word, so I'm not going to do it again. But who cares
Yeah.
what he intended to do?
He made a choice.
He made a choice for 9.5 minutes.
Yep.
4 of those minutes, the man wasn't breathing.
Yeah. He wasn't moving. Yeah.
4 of them, he was gone.
Yep.
To kneel on his throat and kill this man.
Yeah.
And now, you didn't sit in the trial.
Right.
You weren't on the jury. You didn't see the evidence. I mean, only evidence that we have seen with our own eyes, which says guilty, guilty, guilty.
Yeah.
But now he doubts whether he did it on purpose. And who cares whether he did it on purpose? The truth of the matter is, Brett, you never threw one interception on purpose.
Right.
But you were held accountable for your interceptions.
Yep.
Matter of fact, at one point you retired, said, I want to come back. And they said, we've moved on to Aaron Rodgers because you were being held accountable. I love your gunslinger approach to the game, man. I would have loved it. I would have given 100%. I would have found that extra 10% to play with you. No doubt you would have inspired me
Right.
on a football field. But in this world called life, you have taken away the value of my life by my skin color.
Yeah.
And I can't see how anyone can respect that.
Yeah. That's hard. It's definitely. There's a lack of understanding of making that statement. It's like we mentioned in our previous video on accountability. It's about looking through the lenses of the people who are suffering from these actions.
Yeah.
He should have looked through the lenses of George Floyd's family, of his daughter, who no longer has a father because a man made a choice. But instead, he looked at it through the lens of a man who has lived his life in privilege, saying, gosh, I don't think he really meant to do this. He's really not a bad guy. He didn't mean to do this. No, the truth is you can't make excuses anymore. And we have had eternity of making excuses for deplorable behavior, for corrupt behavior. And we do not hold people accountable. We justify things.
No, that's the problem. We do hold people accountable.
The wrong people.
But if they don't have that privilege, if they have the privilege, we let them off.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, look, here's the truth. Something Candace Owens said in her recent video, she said that information about who George Floyd was kept out of the trial, was not even allowed to be included. Right. And she was very angered by the fact of stories about who he was, his character was not allowed in the trial.
Sure.
But, once again, George Floyd was not the one on trial here.
He wasn't.
But so she had made reference to this. So I want to give you a little information about who Derek Chauvin was.
Yeah, no.
Because this was actually relevant to the trial. However, the judge would not let the prosecution include this because he felt it wasn't relevant. But it's relevant to everybody who George Floyd is, right? Because somehow it brings a justification in his murder. So I want to tell you who Derek Chauvin was. This was a man who spent 19 years on the police force. But in those 19 years, he had 18 official complaints filed against him.
Essentially one a year.
Yep. Now, you might say, well, that's normal, right? You can't make everybody happy. Cops always get complaints. However, a retired police officer who was responsible for disciplinary actions within the police force stated very clearly that this was an excessive amount of complaints and not the norm at all. Now, 2 out of the 18 complaints were closed with disciplinary actions. 16 were closed without disciplinary actions. Now, you may think, okay, well, maybe they weren't that bad. 7 of the complaints filed against him were for police brutality and use of excessive force. 7. In addition to the 18 complaints against him, several reports documented Chauvin's involvement in multiple violent and deadly cases of police abuse.
Heartbreaking.
In addition to these, Chauvin and his wife, prior to the murder of George Floyd, were being charged with tax evasion. So neither of them had filed their taxes for multiple years, and some of the years they did file, they did not report the hundreds of thousands of dollars they made on their jobs outside of the ones they reported having. So what does this say? What is the point of this, right? Well, we care about character, right? We care about criminals' characters. We use it to justify their murders or their reasonings why it was acceptable for them to be murdered by cops, right? Because their character justifies that. Derek Chauvin's character says he was a criminal. This man abused his authority, abused his power multiple times, and was never held accountable. There was an instant, one of the complaints against him was a woman who was pulled over for a speeding ticket. Derek Chauvin ripped her out of her car and threw her on the ground, handcuffed her, and held her for 15 minutes like that without saying a word, without explaining to her what was going on, and then 15 minutes later released her without a word and drove off. Now, he later was told by the police chief that that was unacceptable. He had no reason to remove her from the vehicle. But again, this is a pattern. This is a man who used his authority and his power as a police officer to abuse people, to murder people, and got away with it. But suddenly, his character is not in question, right? Only George Floyd's character is in question. Why do we continue to criminalize the victims?
Come on.
The victims are not on trial here, people. This man was on trial not because he was a police officer, but because he committed a murder. And he was held accountable. There was sufficient evidence to show he was responsible for George Floyd's death. Period. So for all of you out there who are still continuing to justify somehow him murdering a man because that man had a past. Well, Derek Chauvin has a past and a present. And he has a history of violent behavior and abusing his authority and power as a police officer and never was held accountable for it. And had he been held accountable, maybe George Floyd would still be alive today. Maybe these riots everybody's so sick and tired of this last year, they would have never happened. Let me tell you, there is no justice in him being convicted. There's only accountability.
That's right.
The truth is, his family isn't jumping for joy because he was convicted. They would rather have their family member alive and breathing today than rejoice in his conviction. Look, they didn't make him a martyr. They didn't make him a saint. We did that. America did that when they did not hold Derek Chauvin accountable for his history of abuse of power.
America, that's the question that we stand at right now. And that's what we wrestle with. And that's what you wrestle with. Every argument, every conversation you've had, every dialogue about the blue line, every argument about all lives matter, blue lives matter, the stripe down the middle. I love police officers. I respect them highly.
Absolutely.
I think that there are more good police officers than there are bad police officers. But the issue is accountability.
Yes.
The issue is, when will we change America and reach our full potential? Because as long as we don't hold people accountable for killing the least of these, we'll never rise to the best of these.
We cannot allow people's hypocrisy to go unchecked anymore.
So whether you're an outstanding football player, a celebrity, or whether you're Candace Owens, the bullshit has to stop.
It does.
And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative. It doesn't matter if you're red, yellow, black, or white, or brown. What religion you are or what background you come from. What's important now is that the hypocrisy needs to stop. And we need to hold one another accountable. And we need to hold our government officials accountable the most. We pay their checks.
We elect them to serve us, and they are serving their own agendas.
Enough is enough. So I want to thank you for being a part of this crazy episode. This one, if it didn't light a fire under your ass.
Yeah.
If it didn't cause you to have a little bit of a response to us, a little bit of a, hey, I want to comment, I want to like, I want to share, I want to dislike, it should provoke something in you. And I embrace that. So please, please do like, comment, and share down below. Leave us some comments, some of your thoughts. If you do subscribe for the first time, one of the coolest things that you can do
is leave us a comment. Let us know. We definitely love to interact. Welcome you to our Lionheart Institute community. We appreciate all of you so very much.
I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And we want to thank you for being a part of this Thomas Table Talk. This is what we talk about around our house, sitting around the dining room table.
It gets heated sometimes.
And we invite you in, usually at least on a weekly basis, to participate. God bless you guys, and we'll see you at the next episode. Please do share this episode with somebody you care about.
See you soon.